I am Jada, 33 years old. This past Christmas, my mother Brenda called me screaming, declaring that since I was single and had no real life, she had just dumped my sister's 5 kids on my porch so my sister could go skiing. She demanded I open my door immediately. I took a slow sip of Dom Pérignon, adjusted the camera on my phone, and showed her the interior of my Emirates First-Class suite, 35,000 feet over the Atlantic. When she threatened to use the family emergency trust to buy replacement tickets, I just smiled and told her to try swiping the card. Before I share exactly how that choice destroyed their entire fake reality, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Hit that like button and subscribe to see what happens when the scapegoat holds all the cards. The plane's Wi-Fi had barely connected before my phone began violently vibrating against the mahogany console of my suite. 47 missed calls. 47. All from my mother Brenda. I sighed, setting down my crystal flute and tapped the most recent voicemail. Her voice, shrill and frantic, blasted through my AirPods. Jada, open your damn door right now. I left Kiara's 5 kids on your porch. You are single, you have no real life, and your sister needs a romantic ski trip with Trent. It is Christmas. Open the door. I stared at the screen, momentarily stunned by the sheer audacity. They hadn't asked. They hadn't checked. They just assumed the single childless daughter was sitting at home in Atlanta waiting to serve them. Without hesitation, I initiated a FaceTime call. Brenda answered on the first ring. Her face filled the screen red with indignation, standing on my expansive front porch. Behind her, in the freezing Georgia morning air, Kiara's 5 children were huddled together, shivering and crying. "What is wrong with you?" Brenda shrieked before I could say a word. "You are ruining Christmas. We have been ringing this bell for 20 minutes. Your sister has a flight to Aspen to catch with Trent, and you are playing games. Open the door, Jada. You have nothing better to do." I kept my voice perfectly level. "I am not playing games, Mom. I am over the Atlantic Ocean." Brenda scoffed, a harsh, dismissive sound. "Stop lying. You are probably sitting inside staring at that little travel blog of yours, trying to avoid your family. You are always so selfish, Jada. Just like when you ruined Kiara's baby shower because you wouldn't pay the catering bill. $10,000 is nothing, and you embarrassed us in front of the whole church." I took a slow breath. Her refusal to see my reality was exhausting but familiar. My little travel blog was actually a luxury concierge and lifestyle management firm that catered to ultra-high net worth clients globally. The catering bill for Kiara's baby shower had been an absurd, extravagant demand that Trent, her white, perpetually unemployed husband, had tried to stick me with. But Brenda didn't know that. She only knew what fit her narrative. Kiara was the golden child who provided grandchildren, and I was the lonely spinster who needed to be useful. "Mom, look at the background," I said calmly. I panned my phone camera, slowly capturing the sliding privacy doors, the vanity mirror, the personal minibar, and finally the window showing endless clouds. "I am on a flight to the Maldives. I am not in Atlanta." Brenda's face dropped. The red flush of anger drained, replaced by stark panic. She spun the camera around. Kiara came into view, clutching her designer coat, looking frantic. "You went to the Maldives," Kiara yelled, pushing her face into the frame. "On Christmas, without telling anyone. You are unbelievable, Jada. You knew Trent and I needed this trip to Aspen." "You never asked me to babysit, Kiara," I replied. "You just assumed. And now you are standing on my porch with 5 freezing children. You are a bitter, miserable woman," Kiara shouted over the crying kids. "You are just jealous because I have a husband and a family, and you just stare at a laptop all day. You are trying to sabotage my marriage." "If I wanted to sabotage your marriage, Kiara, I would not need to fly to the Maldives to do it," I said. "Now you have 2 choices. You can take your children back to Mom's house, or I can call Child Protective Services from international airspace and report you for abandoning minors on a freezing porch." Brenda snatched the phone back. "You wouldn't dare. You are a disgrace to this family, Jada. We are freezing out here. We don't have time to drive back to my house. Trent is already at the airport waiting for Kiara. They are going to miss their flight." "That sounds like a scheduling problem, Mom, not a me problem." Brenda's eyes narrowed. "Fine. If you are going to be this petty, I will just fix it myself. I am using the Emergency Family Trust to buy Kiara and Trent new first-class tickets for a later flight. And I am paying for a luxury nanny service for the week. You brought this on yourself." I leaned back against the plush leather seat and took another sip of my champagne. The Emergency Family Trust. A joint account I had set up years ago when I first started making real money intended to help my parents if they ever faced a true crisis. I had foolishly left Brenda as an authorized user. She thought it contained maybe $10,000. She had no idea it was linked to an account holding over 200,000, and she certainly had no idea I monitored every transaction. Go ahead, Mom. I smiled into the camera. Try to swipe the card. Let me know how that works out for you. I ended the call, the satisfaction warm in my chest. 2 hours later, as I was transitioning through my layover in Dubai, navigating the quiet opulence of the first-class lounge, my phone buzzed. A notification from my private wealth management app flashed across the screen. Trent was attempting to charge $15,000 to the family trust for a private Aspen chalet. The charge, of course, was declined. I had placed a freeze on the card the moment I hung up with Brenda. Immediately, a text from Trent appeared. What did you do to the account, Jada? Stop being a lonely, confused girl and unlock it. We have a chalet to secure. I stared at the message, the sheer entitlement dripping from every word. Trent, a man who hadn't held a steady job in 5 years, who acted like a Wall Street titan while secretly day trading crypto into oblivion, was calling me a confused girl. He was trying to spend my money to fund a lifestyle he couldn't afford for my sister. I didn't just ignore him. I called my private banker in New York. Dissolve the joint family trust account completely, I instructed. Transfer the entire balance back to my sole LLC operating account immediately. Yes, effective right now. I watched the balance zero out on my app. Then I texted Trent back. You cannot spend money you don't earn, Trent. Enjoy the airport Holiday Inn. His response was instantaneous. You ungrateful witch. I helped you file your taxes when you were just a struggling blogger. You owe me. I know how the real world works, Jada. You are making a huge mistake locking the family out of our money. Our money. The delusion was staggering. He genuinely believed that his brief condescending advice years ago entitled him to my current assets. Before I could reply, Kiara called. She was hysterical. Because the card declined. Trent threw a massive tantrum at the airport. She sobbed into the phone. He screamed at me in front of everyone. We are stuck at Mom's house with all the kids. Trent is furious. He says you humiliated him. I did not humiliate him, Kiara. His own lack of funds humiliated him. You need to fix this, Jada, she demanded, her tone shifting from sorrow to entitlement. Wire us $20,000 right now. It is your duty as a black woman to support your family. You have no husband, no kids. You don't need all that money for a vacation. I laughed, a dry, humorless sound. My duty is to myself, Kiara. I am not funding your husband's fake lifestyle anymore. I hung up the phone and blocked her number for the next 12 hours. I needed peace. But peace was a luxury my family would not allow. By the time I boarded my connecting flight, my phone was blowing up again. Text messages from aunts, uncles, and cousins I barely spoke to were pouring in. I opened Facebook and saw why. Kiara and Brenda had launched a full-scale smear campaign. They had tagged the entire extended family and our church congregation in a lengthy, tear-jerking post. Please pray for our family, the post read. Jada abandoned her nieces and nephews on Christmas morning to chase men overseas because she is miserable and barren. She locked us out of the family emergency funds, leaving us stranded. We are heartbroken by her selfishness. I stared at the screen, the lies so blatant they were almost comical. Brenda had even replied to a comment from a church elder writing, Jada has always been jealous of Kiara's beauty and her successful husband. She is punishing us for her own failures. The audacity was breathtaking. They were trying to destroy my reputation within our community to force me into compliance. They expected me to cower, to apologize, to send the money to save face. They thought I was still the quiet, compliant daughter who would take the abuse to keep the peace. They were wrong. The plush leather seating of the Dubai First-Class lounge offered a quiet sanctuary after the 14-hour flight from Atlanta. I had barely set my designer tote down and accepted a glass of sparkling water from the lounge attendant when the screen of my phone lit up. It was not a text message from my mother this time. It was a push notification from my private wealth management app. An authorization hold had just been attempted. The amount was $15,000. The merchant was the St. Regis Aspen Resort. The card used was the Family Emergency Trust. I stared at the glowing numbers on my screen. Trent. My sister Kiara's perpetually unemployed husband was actually standing at an airline counter, or sitting in an airport terminal somewhere, actively trying to book a luxury ski chalet, using the emergency safety net I had established for my parents' medical bills. While his 5 children were currently shivering on my front porch because Kiara wanted a romantic getaway, Trent was trying to upgrade their accommodations on my dime. The audacity was almost impressive, almost. Before I could even open the banking app to investigate further, my phone buzzed with an incoming text message. It was Trent. The tone of his message was so incredibly predictable, dripping with that specific brand of unearned confidence he carried into every family gathering. "Jada, sweetheart," he wrote. "You seem to have messed up the routing protocols on the family card. The concierge here in Atlanta is saying it declined. Don't panic. Just call your little credit union and tell them to lift the fraud hold. I know banking terms confuse you, so just tell them the primary account holder is authorizing a travel expense. Text me when it is done. We have a flight to catch." I read the message twice just to make sure I was not hallucinating the sheer disrespect. He called me sweetheart. He told me not to panic. He assumed my banking institution was a little credit union. And worst of all, he referred to himself as the primary account holder. Trent was a 38-year-old man who spent his days in Kiara's basement trading cryptocurrencies with money he secretly siphoned from my mother. He wore expensive vests, talked loudly about diversified portfolios at Thanksgiving, and loved to corner me in the kitchen to explain how the real world worked. He had spent the last 5 years treating me like a naive child playing on a computer, entirely unaware that the travel blog he constantly mocked was actually a premier luxury lifestyle management firm catering to global elites. I did not reply immediately. I wanted to see how far he would go. 2 minutes later, another text arrived. "Jada, are you there? Kiara is getting stressed out. You really need to handle your banking better. Remember when I had to sit down with you and fix your taxes a few years ago because you could not figure out a basic 1099 for your blog? Let the adults handle the heavy lifting when it comes to finances. Just unlock the card so we can salvage this Christmas. You being a lonely, confused girl today is really hurting your sister. Do the right thing." My grip on the phone tightened. The tax story. It was his favorite anecdote to share at family dinners. 5 years ago, when my business was just beginning to scale into the stratosphere, my mother Brenda had practically begged me to let Trent look over my filings. She insisted Trent was a financial genius because he was a white man who watched the stock market channel. To keep the peace, I had shown him a single, redacted income statement from one of my smallest affiliate streams showing $40,000. Trent had patted me on the back, laughed at my meager earnings, and explained basic tax brackets to me like I was a toddler. He had no idea that $40,000 was just the ad revenue from a single Tuesday. He had no idea my actual corporate accountants in Manhattan handled my real wealth. He used that fake interaction to establish himself as my financial superior in the eyes of my mother and sister. And now he was using it to justify stealing $15,000 from me. I did not type out a furious response. I did not try to explain my worth to a man who was actively trying to rob me. I simply opened my contacts and pressed the secure line for my private wealth manager. The call connected immediately. "Good evening, Miss Williams," David said, his voice calm and professional. "How is Dubai treating you?" I skipped the pleasantries. "David, I need you to pull up the joint family trust account ending in 4289. "I have it right here," he replied. "I see a flagged transaction for $15,000 that triggered our fraud prevention protocols. Would you like me to push it through?" "Absolutely not," I said, keeping my voice dangerously low. "I want you to freeze that specific card permanently. Furthermore, I am executing my right as the sole grantor of that trust. I want the entire account dissolved immediately. Transfer the remaining balance of $240,000 directly back into my primary corporate holding account." There was a brief pause on the line. David was accustomed to moving millions at my command, But dissolving a family trust on Christmas Day was unusual even for my portfolio. Miss Williams, just to confirm, dissolving the trust will instantly invalidate any physical cards tied to that account. Any authorized users currently attempting to utilize those funds will be permanently locked out without recourse. That is exactly the point, David. Execute the transfer. Remove Brenda Williams and Trent from all authorized user registries across my entire financial ecosystem. They are to have zero access to my liquidity effective this exact second. Consider it done, he said. The transfer is processing now. The trust account is officially closed. Is there anything else you need to secure your assets today? No, that will be all, thank you, David. I ended the call and opened my banking app. I watched with profound satisfaction as the family trust account simply vanished from my dashboard, the funds safely absorbed back into my untouchable corporate fortress. The safety net I had built out of guilt and filial duty was gone. They had abused my generosity for the absolute last time. My phone was vibrating wildly now. Trent was calling. I watched his name flash on the screen, letting it ring until it rolled to voicemail. He called again. I let it ring. Finally, a series of frantic text messages flooded my screen in rapid succession. Jada, the card is coming back as completely invalid. The agent is saying the account does not exist. Jada, answer the phone. Kiara is crying. They are going to give our chalet away. What kind of cheap bank are you using? Call them right now and fix this. We are standing at the counter looking like idiots. I took a slow, deep breath, letting the cool, conditioned air of the Dubai lounge fill my lungs. I looked out the massive glass windows at the tarmac, feeling an incredible sense of clarity. For my entire adult life, my mother had enabled Kiara and Trent, forcing me to play the role of the reliable, invisible workhorse who funded their delusions of grandeur. They thought they could dump 5 children on my porch, steal my emergency funds for a ski trip, and then insult my intelligence while doing it. I tapped the message bar and typed my response. I did not use anger. I did not use exclamation points. I used the cold, hard truth that they had been avoiding for years. The card is not broken, Trent. The account is dissolved. I just transferred all the funds back to my sole corporate holding company. You are trying to book a luxury vacation using money I set aside for my mother's medical emergencies. You cannot spend money you do not earn, Trent. Stop pretending to be a financial genius while living off your sister-in-law's travel blog. I suggest you go pick up those 5 children you abandoned in the freezing cold. Enjoy the airport Holiday Inn. I hit send. I did not block his number yet. I wanted the delivery receipt to confirm he read it. I watched the tiny indicator change to read. I imagined him standing at that airline counter, his face turning pale, his false bravado crumbling as the realization hit him. The limitless bank of Jada was permanently closed. I picked up my sparkling water and took a long, refreshing drink. The war had officially begun, but for the first time in my life, I was the one directing the battlefield. The read receipt on my message to Trent glowed quietly on my screen. I did not even have time to set my phone back down on the marble table before it began vibrating with a violent urgency. The caller ID flashed my sister's name, Kiara. I answered the call and did not even get the chance to say hello. Jada, what did you do to the card? Kiara screamed so loudly the audio distorted. I had to pull the phone away from my ear. You ruined everything. Trent just threw a massive fit at the Delta counter in front of half of Atlanta. He threw his bags. He screamed at the ticketing agent that he is a Platinum Medallion member and they needed to force the charge through. The agent literally laughed in his face, Jada. They laughed at my husband. Now security is threatening to escort us out of the airport, and the kids are crying because they want to see the snow. I took a slow sip of my sparkling water. It sounds like your husband needs to learn how to manage his emotions in public, Kiara. Maybe he should try breathing exercises. Are you out of your mind? Kiara shrieked. The background noise on her end was chaotic. I could hear car horns honking and the muffled sobs of my nieces and nephews. We are standing on the curb waiting for an Uber XL because Trent is too embarrassed to call Mom to come pick us up. We have all this ski gear and nowhere to go. You dissolve the trust. How could you dissolve the trust on Christmas? Because it is my trust, Kiara. I funded it. I managed it. Mom was an authorized user for medical emergencies, not a travel agent for your luxury vacations. You are so vindictive. Kiara was hyperventilating now. You are doing this because you are jealous. You have always been jealous that Trent chose me, that I am the one who gave Mom a real family. You sit in your empty apartment with your travel blog and try to find ways to make me as miserable as you are. I let her vent. This was the exact dynamic our mother had cultivated between us since childhood. Brenda had always treated Kiara like a fragile porcelain doll that needed constant protection and funding, while I was treated like the family workhorse. When Kiara failed out of college, our mother bought her a car to cheer her up. When I graduated with honors, I was told to drive Kiara to her salon appointments. Kiara was conditioned to believe my existence was solely meant to facilitate her comfort. I am not jealous of a man who cannot afford his own ski trip, Kiara, I replied, keeping my voice perfectly level. Now please tell your husband to stop texting me. I have a flight to catch. Wait, do not hang up. Kiara's tone suddenly shifted from rage to a desperate whining pitch. Jada, listen to me. Trent is humiliated. If we go back to Mom's house right now, he is going to make my life a living hell. He says this makes him look like a failure. You have to fix this. Just wire $20,000 to my personal checking account right now. I actually laughed out loud. $20,000 for what? For the chalet and the first-class flights. Kiara said, speaking rapidly, as if the request made perfect logical sense. You have the money, Jada. You do not have kids. You do not have a husband to take care of. It is your duty as a black woman to support your family when we are down. We are supposed to lift each other up. Do not be one of those bitter women who gets a little bit of money and turns their back on their own blood. Wire the money, Jada. Save my Christmas. The sheer manipulation was breathtaking. She was attempting to weaponize our race, our gender, and my single status all in one breath to fund her white husband's ego trip. Kiara, I said, leaning forward in my plush leather chair, let us get something straight. It is not my duty as a black woman to fund a 38-year-old man who refuses to get a job. Trent spends his days in your basement losing money on cryptocurrency while you pretend to be a wealthy stay-at-home mom on Instagram. I paid for your kids' private school tuition last semester when Trent blew your savings on a failed tech startup. I paid for the catering at your baby shower. I paid the property taxes on Mom's house. I have lifted this family up until my back broke. The bank of Jada is closed. You owe me, Kiara screamed, her voice cracking. I am the older sister. You owe respect to your elders. If you do not wire that money right now, I swear to God, Jada, I will destroy you. I will tell everyone who you really are. I will let the whole world know what a selfish, toxic narcissist you are. You will not be able to show your face at church. You will not be able to look our extended family in the eye. I will ruin your life. You cannot ruin a life you have no access to, Kiara, I replied. Have a safe Uber ride home. I hung up the phone. I did not feel angry. I felt an overwhelming sense of liberation. For 33 years, I had allowed their emotional blackmail to dictate my financial decisions. I had constantly shrunk myself, hiding my massive corporate success behind the guise of a small travel blog, just to avoid bruising Trent's fragile ego and triggering Kiara's relentless jealousy. I had played small so they could feel big. And the reward for my humility was a demand for $20,000 and a threat to destroy my reputation. The boarding announcement for my connecting flight to the Maldives chimed softly through the premium lounge. I gathered my belongings, tipped the attendant generously, and made my way to the private boarding bridge. I settled into my enclosed suite on the plane, the flight attendant immediately offering me a warm towel and a fresh glass of champagne. I put my phone on airplane mode as we took off, deciding to enjoy the absolute silence. I watched the glittering skyline of Dubai fade beneath the clouds, treating myself to a rare moment of uninterrupted peace. For 5 hours I slept deeply, the kind of sleep that only comes when you finally sever a rotting tie. When I woke up, the flight was nearing its descent over the crystalline waters of the Indian Ocean. The cabin crew brought me a fresh espresso, and I connected my phone to the satellite internet. I expected a few angry texts from Brenda. I expected maybe another ridiculous threat from Trent. I did not expect my phone to freeze completely from the sheer volume of incoming notifications. The screen lit up like a slot machine. Missed calls from my Aunt Shirley, voicemails from my Uncle David, direct messages from members of the church choir, texts from cousins I had not spoken to since high school. But it was the relentless stream of Facebook notifications that caught my eye. Dozens of tags, hundreds of comments. I tapped the Facebook icon. Kiara had not wasted any time. Right at the top of my feed was a massive multi-paragraph post authored by Kiara and shared by Brenda. They had tagged over 60 family members, friends, and congregants from our church in Atlanta. The post featured a heartbreaking, carefully curated photo of Kiara's 5 children sitting on Brenda's front porch, looking miserable in their winter coats next to a pile of luggage. "Please pray for our family during this incredibly dark and painful Christmas," the post read. "I am sitting here with my beautiful children, completely stranded and heartbroken. My own sister Jada decided to abandon us in our hour of greatest need. Instead of spending the holidays with her family, she chose to fly overseas to chase men and live a life of sin. We had a family emergency fund set up to help care for our aging mother, but Jada maliciously locked the accounts and stole the money just to punish my husband Trent for trying to give our children a decent Christmas. She left us freezing on a porch and stole from her own mother. Please pray for Jada's hardened heart. She is a miserable, barren woman who hates seeing anyone else happy." I stared at the screen. The post already had over 100 comments. Aunt Shirley wrote, "I am so deeply disappointed in Jada. We always knew she was a little off, but stealing from her own mother is evil. Praying for you and Trent." Deacon Thomas from our church commented, "This breaks my heart. A woman who turns her back on her family has lost her way. We will organize a collection plate for you and the children, Kiara." Brenda had replied to the deacon's comment. "Thank you, Deacon. Jada has always been deeply jealous of Kiara's beauty and her successful marriage to Trent. She cannot find a good man, so she is punishing us for her own failures. We are just trying to keep the kids smiling today." They had weaponized my single status. They had framed me as a thief. They had used Trent's absolute financial incompetence to paint themselves as victims of my supposed jealousy. They were orchestrating a public execution of my character, rallying an entire community of gossips and hypocrites to tear me down fully, expecting me to call them crying and begging for forgiveness. They expected me to wire the money to make the public shaming stop. I took a sip of my espresso. The turquoise water of the Maldives sparkled outside my window. I felt a slow, dangerous smile spread across my face. They wanted to play a public game. They wanted to air out family business for an audience. I opened my secure cloud storage and located the highly classified accounting folder I kept for my personal real estate holdings. I found the specific ledger I was looking for. I took a clean, high-resolution screenshot. I did not need to write a multi-paragraph essay crying about my feelings. I did not need to tag the church congregation. I only needed one picture to burn their entire fabricated reality straight to the ground. The twin engines of the private seaplane whined to a halt, replaced instantly by the gentle lapping of the Indian Ocean against the wooden dock. I stepped out into the brilliant Maldivian sunlight, the warm tropical breeze instantly melting away the lingering stiffness of my global transit. My private butler stood at the end of the pier holding a chilled eucalyptus towel and a glass of vintage champagne. I accepted both, taking a deep breath of the salt air as I walked toward my overwater villa. It was a sprawling sanctuary of glass and polished teak suspended over a crystal-clear lagoon. This was my hard-earned reality. But inside the pocket of my linen trousers, my phone was vibrating with the frantic, toxic energy of a life I was finally leaving behind. I stepped into the villa, dropped my designer weekender bag onto the glass floor panel, and sank into a massive circular lounge chair facing the ocean. I unlocked my phone. The notification screen was a digital war zone. My mother and sister had not just complained to a few relatives. They had deployed the entire extended family and our church congregation as their personal flying monkeys. My inbox was choked with direct messages, group chat tags, and Facebook mentions. Aunt Denise, a woman whose light bill I had quietly paid twice last year, sent me a voice note calling me a bitter child-hating narcissist. She said I was a disgrace to the family name for abandoning my innocent nieces and nephews on Christmas Day, just so I could go chase men overseas. Deacon Reynolds from our church sent a long, preachy text about the duties of a Christian woman, heavily implying that my single status was a punishment from God. and that I needed to repent for locking my mother out of her own money. They had weaponized my single status, my independence, and my boundaries. They painted my hard-earned vacation as some desperate, scandalous hunt for a man, completely ignoring the fact that I had booked this luxury retreat to celebrate closing my most profitable corporate quarter to date. I opened the Facebook app to see the source of the outrage. Kiara had posted a highly edited, dramatically filtered photo of her 5 kids looking miserable on my front porch. The caption was a masterclass in manipulation, spinning a tale of a devoted mother and a hardworking husband being victimized by a cruel, wealthy spinster sister. But it was my mother Brenda's comment underneath the post that made my jaw clench. Brenda had written a public reply for all 400 of her Facebook friends to see. She stated that I had always been intensely jealous of Kiara. She claimed I envied Kiara's beauty, her lighter complexion, and the fact that she had managed to secure a successful husband while I was pushing 35 with nothing but a computer and a bad attitude. Brenda went on to praise Trent, calling him a brilliant provider who just needed a small break, and accused me of trying to destroy their beautiful marriage out of pure, unadulterated spite. A successful husband. The phrase echoed in my mind as I took another slow sip of my champagne. Trent had not held a legitimate job in 5 years. He spent his days sitting in Kiara's basement in his expensive athleisure wear, losing thousands of dollars day trading volatile cryptocurrencies. He was a financial parasite masquerading as a Wall Street guru, and my mother worshipped the ground he walked on simply because he was a white man who gave her light-skinned grandchildren. She was willing to humiliate her own black daughter, the one who actually funded her entire existence to protect his fragile ego. For years I had kept my mouth shut. I had paid the catering bills, the private school tuitions, the property taxes, and the emergency car repairs. I had absorbed their insults at Thanksgiving dinners. I had smiled tightly when they mocked my lack of a husband. I had let them diminish my global corporate agency into a cute little travel blog so that Trent would not feel emasculated by a black woman out-earning him by millions. I had played the role of the quiet, reliable workhorse because I believed that protecting my family's dignity was my duty. But as I sat there looking at the turquoise water stretching out to the horizon, the final thread of my familial guilt snapped. They did not want my protection. They wanted my submission. They wanted my resources without having to offer me basic human respect. I set my champagne glass down on the teak table. The time for playing nice was officially over. If they wanted to air out family business on a public stage, I was going to give them a blockbuster performance. I opened the secure encrypted drive on my phone, navigating to the folder labeled Personal Holdings. I did not need to write a long emotional paragraph defending my character. I did not need to argue with Aunt Denise or justify my life to Deacon Reynolds. I only needed raw, undeniable data. I scrolled down to a specific file from last November. It was an official wire transfer confirmation and a corresponding bank ledger. 12 months ago, Trent had convinced my mother to let him invest the entirety of her retirement savings into a supposed guaranteed crypto venture. He lost every single penny in under 3 weeks. The bank holding the mortgage on my mother's house had initiated foreclosure proceedings. Brenda had called me sobbing, begging me not to tell Kiara, begging me to fix it. I had stepped in. I had paid $85,000 in cash to the bank to halt the public auction, reinstate the loan, and ultimately buy the deed to the house through a blind trust to ensure it could never be leveraged by Trent again. I had saved them from absolute ruin, and the reward for my silence was being publicly branded a jealous, barren villain. I opened the ledger document on my screen. Using the markup tool, I carefully redacted my primary corporate account numbers and the routing details. But I left everything else crystal clear. I left the date. I left the exact amount of $85,000. I left the receiving bank's name. And most importantly, I left the memo line which explicitly stated the payment was to clear the mortgage default for Brenda's property address. I took a high-resolution screenshot of the redacted document. The image was undeniable proof of who actually funded the lifestyle this family loved to brag about. I closed Facebook and opened my text messages. I navigated to the massive group chat titled Williams Family Blessings, a chat containing 42 members including my mother, Kiara Trent, and every loudmouthed aunt and uncle who had just spent the last 2 hours attacking my character. The chat was currently buzzing with messages of support for Kiara and prayers for my supposed hardened heart. I selected the screenshot from my photo gallery. I attached it to the chat box. I did not type a defensive essay. I typed a single razor-sharp caption. Since we are airing family business on Christmas, here is the $85,000 I paid in cash to keep Mom's house out of foreclosure last year because Trent stole her entire retirement fund for his crypto scams. Enjoy the ski trip. My thumb hovered over the send button. A warm ocean breeze drifted through the open glass doors of the villa, rustling the sheer white curtains. I felt a profound, exhilarating sense of power. I was no longer the scapegoat. I was the architect of their reckoning. I pressed send and watched the image deliver to 42 different phones. The little blue check marks, indicating my message had been delivered and read, began to multiply at a staggering pace. 2 red receipts, then 12, then 38. For 3 agonizingly long minutes, the group chat was completely devoid of activity. The typing indicators would bubble up at the bottom of my screen, hover for a few seconds, and then vanish, as 42 people simultaneously tried to process the mathematical reality of $85,000. I could almost hear the collective gasp echoing from Atlanta to Chicago, where my extended family resided. They had been ready to crucify me over a fabricated narrative about missed babysitting and my supposedly bitter single life. Now they were staring at a federally certified bank document proving that the beloved, deeply religious matriarch of the family had nearly lost her home because she handed her life savings to her white son-in-law. Aunt Shirley was the first to break the digital silence. "What on earth is this, Brenda? Tell me this is a bad joke." Uncle Calvin chimed in a second later. $85,000. Brenda, you told me you needed a $5,000 loan last November because the foundation cracked and your insurance would not cover it. You sat in my living room and cried. You told me Jada refused to help you pay for the repairs. My phone buzzed with the sheer velocity of incoming texts. The chat transformed into a digital courtroom. Cousins who had just been praying for my hardened heart on Facebook were now demanding to know how Trent managed to lose that much money without anyone noticing. The hypocrisy was delicious. I watched as the very people who had dragged my name through the mud turned their righteous indignation onto the real culprits. My phone screen flashed with an incoming call from Kiara. I declined it instantly. I was not going to let them scream at me in private while maintaining their victim status in public. If they had something to say, they were going to say it in front of the entire family. Brenda frantically began typing in the chat. The typing bubble danced on the screen for a full minute before her message appeared. "Do not believe a single word she says. Jada is a bitter liar. She probably created that fake document on her computer just to humiliate Trent. She is sick in the head and jealous of her sister. We are deleting this group chat right now." I took another sip of my drink, the crisp bubbles of the champagne, a perfect contrast to the heat radiating from my phone. I did not even type a response. I simply selected a second photo from my secure drive. It was a screenshot of an email from Brenda dated November 14th of last year. I highlighted the text to make it impossible to miss. The email read, "Jada, please, you have to wire the money directly to the foreclosure attorney today. Trent made a mistake with the crypto market and the bank is going to auction the house on Tuesday. Please do not tell Kiara, it will break her heart to know Trent failed. I will do anything you ask, just save the house." I dropped the email screenshot into the chat. The silence that followed this second drop was even shorter than the first. The family erupted. Aunt Shirley sent a voice note directly to the chat. I did not even need to hold it to my ear to hear her booming voice. "Brenda, you are a bold-faced liar. You let that unemployed man gamble away your retirement, and then you sat up in church and let everyone think Jada was a selfish daughter. You took my money for a fake foundation repair. You are a disgrace to this family." Cousin Malik sent a string of laughing emojis followed by a text. "Trent has been wearing fake designer watches and giving us stock advice at every cookout while secretly living off Jada. That is wild. He literally told me last month that Jada needed to learn how to invest her little blog money." The shift in power was absolute. I had stripped away the pristine facade Brenda had spent decades cultivating. Her position as the esteemed spiritually superior matriarch of the Williams family was burning to ash in real time. She could no longer hide behind her carefully curated church outfits and her tales of Kiara's perfect marriage. The reality was laid bare. I was the financial pillar holding up the entire collapsing structure of their lives. Then Kiara decided to insert herself into the chat. Instead of staying quiet and letting the fire burn itself out, she attempted to defend her husband. Trent did not steal anything. She typed her words practically dripping with desperation. He was investing to build generational wealth for the family. He just hit a bad market fluctuation. Jada has more money than she knows what to do with, so she should have helped us without throwing it in our faces. We are family. She owes us. It was a fatal miscalculation. Kiara had just publicly confirmed the theft while trying to justify it. She had completely bypassed the fact that her husband nearly rendered her mother homeless, choosing instead to focus on my supposed obligation to fund their mistakes. Uncle Calvin responded immediately. Generational wealth. Kiara, your husband is a 38-year-old man who plays video games in a basement. He gambled your mother into foreclosure, and you expect your sister to just foot the bill because she is single. You both need to be ashamed of yourselves. Brenda, you need to pay me my $5,000 back by tomorrow, or I am taking you to small claims court. Cousin Malik sent another message. Kiara, you were just posting on Instagram last week about your new designer bags and how Trent spoils you. You bought that with Uncle Calvin's roof money. You are literally wearing our stolen cash. The congregation is going to lose their minds when they find out the truth. I watched the family tear each other apart for another 10 minutes. The people who had been ready to burn me at the stake were now demanding Brenda return the money they had loaned her under false pretenses. They realized that every time Brenda had asked for a loan for car repairs, medical bills, or home maintenance, she was actually funneling cash directly into Trent's failed trading accounts. The group chat was a masterclass in swift, merciless accountability. I did not need to say another word. I let the evidence do the heavy lifting. For years, Trent had treated me like a naive child. He would stand in my mother's kitchen drinking the expensive scotch I had purchased, explaining basic economic principles to me, while I smiled and nodded. Brenda would always chime in telling me to listen to Trent, because he knew how the corporate world operated. Meanwhile, I was orchestrating international lifestyle logistics for clients who spent more on a weekend yacht rental than Trent had ever earned in his life. I had allowed them to underestimate me to keep the peace. But peace was no longer an option. Just as I was about to turn my phone off and dive into the crystal-clear water beneath my private deck, a new notification popped up at the top of my screen. It was a direct message from Trent. The polite condescension was entirely gone. The white knight persona had evaporated. He was furious and backed into a corner, his fragile ego shattered for all to see. "You think you are so smart." He wrote, his text arriving in rapid-fire bursts. "You think you can just post private financial information and ruin my reputation. You are going to pay for this, Jada. I am taking screenshots of everything you just posted. I am calling my lawyer right now, and I am going to sue you for defamation and emotional distress. And do not forget, I helped you set up your LLC taxes years ago. That makes me an early advisor to your company. I have legal grounds to claim equity in your little blog. You better get your checkbook ready because I am going to take every dime your business makes. You just made the biggest mistake of your life." My phone vibrated against the teakwood table with a sharp, sustained buzz. Trent had moved his temper tantrum from text messages to my professional inbox. The notification banner flashed across my screen, displaying an email sent to my primary business address. The subject line was typed entirely in capital letters and read, "Urgent legal notice, cease and desist." I leaned back in my lounge chair and watched a pair of reef sharks glide through the crystalline water beneath my glass floor. I took a slow breath of the salt air before tapping the screen to open the message. I knew Trent was delusional, but I genuinely wanted to see how far his unearned confidence would carry him. The email was a masterpiece of masculine audacity and comedic legal incompetence. Trent had clearly spent the last 20 minutes frantically copying and pasting terms from a quick internet search. He did not address me by name. Instead, he started the email with "To whom it may concern," completely ignoring the fact that he was writing directly to his sister-in-law. The first paragraph was a chaotic word salad. He accused me of defamation per se, tortious interference with his travel plans, and a breach of fiduciary duty. He claimed that by posting the bank ledger in the family group chat, I had inflicted severe emotional distress upon him and his wife, Kiara. He stated that his reputation in the Atlanta business community had been irreparably damaged by my reckless actions and that he was now experiencing physical symptoms of panic due to my cyberbullying. I actually laughed out loud. His reputation in the Atlanta business community consisted exclusively of him sitting in his pajamas in Kiara's basement, losing my mother's money on imaginary digital coins. But the second paragraph of the email was where Trent truly showcased his entitlement. He formally demanded that I immediately relinquish all administrative control of the family trust account and transfer authorization rights directly to his name. He claimed that as the head of the household for Brenda's eldest daughter, he was the natural and legal steward of the family's assets. If that was not enough, he added a secondary demand. He wanted $50,000 wired to his personal account by midnight as a settlement for the emotional damages I had caused. If I failed to comply, he threatened to initiate a hostile takeover of my business assets. He wrote that he had retained all his text messages from 5 years ago when he advised me on my tax filings. According to Trent, telling me to save my grocery receipts made him an early-stage venture consultant for my company. He claimed this gave him legal grounds to demand equity in my enterprise. Then came the final threat. He wrote, "I know how the real world works, Jada. You have been playing around with this cute little hobby for years. If the $50,000 is not in my account by midnight, I will personally contact your website hosting providers. I will report you for fraudulent business practices and have your little travel blog permanently shut down. Do not test me. I have lawyers on retainer who eat struggling bloggers for breakfast. You are out of your depth, little girl." I read the final sentence again, little girl. My mind flashed back to a family Juneteenth cookout 3 years ago. I had spent $2,000 catering the event to ensure my mother Brenda did not have to lift a finger. I had also brought a bottle of rare 25-year-old Macallan Scotch, specifically as a gift for my uncle. Trent had arrived late wearing boat shoes and a smug expression. He immediately took over the grill, managed to burn half the ribs, and then proceeded to open my uncle's scotch without asking. I remember standing in the kitchen preparing the side dishes when Trent cornered me. He swirled the expensive liquor in his plastic cup and started mansplaining the concept of a limited liability company to me. He told me that my travel blog was cute, but I needed to think about real monetization. He offered to manage my ad revenue for a 20% cut. When I politely declined, stating my business structure was already handled, Brenda had marched over and scolded me. She told me I needed to humble myself and take notes. She said Trent had a real business mind, and that I should be grateful a man of his caliber was willing to look at my little internet project. She completely ignored the fact that Trent had been fired from his logistics job 3 weeks prior. She just wanted to appease the white man who had married her golden child. I swallowed the insult that day to keep the peace. I let him drink the scotch. I let my mother belittle my work. I let them all believe I was scraping by on pennies while they lived large. But today, sitting in the Maldives in a villa that cost more per night than Trent had earned in his entire life, the memory did not make me feel small. It made me feel lethal. Trent thought he was dealing with a vulnerable, lonely woman running a WordPress site out of a spare bedroom. He thought a fake cease and desist letter would terrify me into wiring him $50,000. He truly believed he could call a customer service hotline and have my digital footprint erased. He had no idea that my luxury concierge firm possessed a proprietary bank-level encrypted platform. He had no idea my client list included royal family members, tech billionaires, and global dignitaries. And he certainly had no idea that my legal representation was not a local storefront attorney, but a Tier 1 corporate litigation firm based in Manhattan. I did not reply to his email. Engaging with his delusions would only validate his false sense of authority. Instead, I tapped the forward button. I typed in the email address for my lead corporate counsel in New York. The man charged $800 an hour and had a reputation for being an absolute shark in the courtroom. He handled my international vendor contracts and shielded my assets with ruthless efficiency. He did not tolerate fools, and he especially did not tolerate men attempting to intimidate his highest billing female client. I added a brief message to the forwarded thread. Good morning, Richard. I hope you are enjoying your holiday weekend. Please see the attached correspondence from my brother-in-law. He is demanding $50,000 and attempting to claim equity in the firm based on a conversation we had 5 years ago. He is also threatening to shut down our digital infrastructure. I do not want to negotiate. I want you to draft the most aggressive, legally binding response you can legally construct. Bury him in paperwork. Make it clear that any further contact from him will result in a countersuit that will garnish his wages for the rest of his natural life. Bill your time directly to my primary account. I hit send. The email vanished into cyberspace, rocketing toward a Manhattan skyscraper, where a team of highly paid professionals would eagerly tear Trent's amateur threats to shreds. I set my phone down on the table and let out a long, satisfying breath. The sun was beginning to set over the Indian Ocean, painting the sky in brilliant strokes of violet and gold. The air was warm and fragrant, completely detached from the bitter, freezing chaos unfolding in Atlanta. I had neutralized the financial drain. I had exposed their lies to the entire community. I had handed their empty threats over to a legal team that would make them regret ever learning how to type. But the war was far from over. I knew Brenda and Kiara. I knew they would not go down quietly. The moment Trent realized his legal intimidation tactic had failed, the panic would set in. They would realize the bank of Jada was truly closed, and without my silent funding, the fragile house of cards they called a luxury lifestyle was going to collapse. My phone buzzed again, lighting up the darkening terrace. The screen displayed a notification from my public relations director. The media embargo had officially lifted. The timing was absolutely flawless. I smiled, reaching for the device. Trent wanted to talk about my cute little hobby. It was time to show him exactly what a little girl could build. I did not wait for my legal team in New York to finish drafting their corporate response. Trent needed a personal touch before the heavy machinery arrived. I opened a direct reply to his pathetic cease and desist email. I did not attach files. I did not write a lengthy explanation defending my character or my business. I simply pasted a single URL link into the body of the email. The link directed to the digital edition of Forbes magazine. The article had gone live at 6 o'clock that very morning. The headline was bold and impossible to misinterpret. It read, "Redefining Luxury: How Jada Williams Built a $45 million concierge empire entirely under the radar." The feature spread included a high-resolution photograph of me standing in the executive boardroom of my Manhattan field office, wearing a tailored emerald suit and looking directly into the camera lens with absolute authority. The journalist had spent months following my corporate journey, detailing my global expansion, my elite client roster, and the proprietary encryption software that made my firm the most trusted lifestyle management service for international billionaires. The article explicitly outlined my valuation, noting that I was the sole owner and primary shareholder of a debt-free enterprise. Below the link, I typed exactly 3 sentences. My lawyers charge $800 an hour, Trent. We both know your credit card declined at the airport Holiday Inn. Try me. I hit send. I leaned back against the plush cushions of my outdoor lounge chair, letting the Maldivian sun warm my skin while my server poured me another glass of chilled water. I opened my email server analytics and watched the digital footprint of my brother-in-law unfold in real time. I saw the exact timestamp when Trent opened the message. I watched the analytics register a click on the Forbes link. Then I saw the session duration tick upward. He was reading it. 1 minute passed, then 3, then 5. I could practically see the blood draining from his face as he scrolled through paragraph after paragraph, detailing the massive corporate structure I commanded. Trent had spent half a decade telling everyone at our family functions that my business was a cute little hobby. I remembered a specific Thanksgiving dinner 2 years ago when I brought a premium honey-baked ham and 4 expensive side dishes. Trent had cornered me by the kitchen island, holding a cheap beer he did not pay for. He loudly told me I needed to optimize my travel blog for better ad revenue so I could finally move out of my starter home. He offered to manage my finances for a 20% cut, claiming his crypto portfolio was going to make him a millionaire by the summer. Kiara had walked in right at that moment laughing and telling me I should be grateful. A white man with real corporate experience was willing to give me free advice. She told me I needed to listen to her husband because I clearly had no idea how to navigate the real world. They genuinely believed my entire net worth hovered around $30,000. I let them believe it because my peace of mind was worth infinitely more than their shallow validation. Now Trent was staring at undeniable proof that the woman he had been condescending to for years possessed more wealth, power, and influence than he could ever hope to achieve. The utter silence from his end of the digital world was the most beautiful symphony I had heard all year. His fake corporate persona had just collided with actual corporate dominance at a velocity that left him completely paralyzed. He did not reply to the email. He did not send another frantic text message demanding money. He simply vanished into the digital void, utterly humiliated by his own arrogance. I walked to the edge of my private deck and looked down at the vibrant coral reef thriving below the surface of the water. I expected Trent to eventually grovel. I expected Kiara to send a barrage of angry texts accusing me of hiding my wealth to make them look foolish. What I did not expect was the phone call that came exactly 12 minutes later. The caller ID flashed my mother's name, Brenda. I almost let the call go to voicemail, assuming she was ringing to scream about the Forbes article or the group chat exposure. I figured she had finally seen the messages from Aunt Shirley and Uncle Calvin demanding their stolen money back. But the ringtone persisted, vibrating against the teakwood table with a frantic energy. I picked up the device and pressed accept, keeping my voice completely devoid of emotion. "Hello, Mom," I said. There was no screaming. There was no righteous church lady indignation about respecting my elders. There was only a primal, hyperventilating panic that cut straight through the phone speaker. "Jada," she gasped, her voice trembling so violently I could barely understand her words. "Jada, please help me." I narrowed my eyes. "What is wrong?" "There is a man on my porch, Jada." Brenda was sobbing now, sharp, breathless cries that sounded entirely unscripted. "He is wearing a suit, and he just taped a bright orange piece of paper to my front door. He handed me a clipboard and told me I had been officially served." "Served with what, Mom?" "It is an eviction notice, Jada." She wailed, the sound echoing loudly in my ear. "It is a 30-day notice to vacate the premises. They are evicting me. The bank is throwing me and Kiara's 5 children out on the street on Christmas. The paper says the property management company is terminating my residency. Jada, you have to fix this. You paid the bank last year. You told me the house was saved. Why are they kicking me out?" I stood perfectly still, the ocean breeze suddenly feeling incredibly sharp. Brenda was completely hysterical, begging me to wire another $85,000 to the bank right that second to stop the man in the suit. She promised she would never let Trent manage her money again. She promised she would make Kiara apologize for the terrible things she posted on Facebook. She offered me every empty concession she could think of, believing this was a banking error that my money could magically erase. She had no idea that the man in the suit was not from her original mortgage lender. She had no idea that the bank she owed money to had been completely removed from the equation 12 months ago. She thought I simply paid her past due balance to catch her up on her missed payments. I took a slow, deliberate breath. The ultimate realization was about to hit her, and I wanted to deliver the news with absolute precision. "Mom," I said, my tone lowering into a quiet, authoritative register, "the bank is not evicting you." "What do you mean the bank is not evicting me?" Brenda cried. The man handed me the papers. "The orange sticker is on my door right now. It says I have 30 days to leave the property. If the bank is not doing this, then who is doing it?" "I am doing it, Mom," I replied. The line went dead silent. The sobbing stopped instantly, replaced by a heavy, suffocating quiet. I could hear Kiara in the background asking her mother what was wrong, but Brenda did not answer her. "What did you just say?" Brenda whispered. "I said I am the one evicting you, Mom. When you called me crying last November because Trent gambled away your retirement and the bank was auctioning your house, I did not just pay your late fees. I bought the deed. I paid off the entire mortgage in cash through a blind corporate trust. I am the sole legal owner of the estate you are currently standing in. You are my tenant. And my property management firm just initiated a 30-day notice to vacate because you violated the lease agreement." Brenda let out a sound that was half gasp, half choke. You own my house. I own my house, Mom. I corrected her gently. You just live there. And the only reason you have lived there for the past year is because I allowed it. But dumping my sister's 5 children on my porch on Christmas morning, and then rallying our entire church congregation to publicly slander my name was a clear violation of the peace I require to maintain my charity. You wanted to impress the neighborhood with your massive home and your successful white son-in-law. Now you get to explain to the neighborhood why you are packing your belongings into boxes. Jada, you cannot do this. Brenda shrieked, the panic returning with terrifying force. I am your mother. I carried you for 9 months. You are going to throw your own mother and your sister's 5 innocent black children onto the street on Christmas. I am not throwing anyone on the street today, Mom. You have 30 days to figure out a housing arrangement with your favorite daughter and her financial genius of a husband. I suggest Trent use his extensive corporate experience to secure a new lease for you all. The line erupted into pure chaos. Kiara began screaming in the background, demanding Brenda give her the phone, while Brenda wailed about the wrath of God punishing me for my cruelty. I did not hang up. I stood on my deck in paradise and listened to the empire of lies crumble into dust. The line crackled with the heavy, frantic breathing of my mother. When Brenda finally spoke, the authoritarian church matriarch tone was entirely gone. In its place was the weeping, manipulative cadence she had perfected over 3 decades of making me the bad guy. Jada, you listen to me right now! Brenda cried, her voice vibrating with manufactured agony. I am your mother. I carried you in my womb for 9 agonizing months. I gave you life. I worked my fingers to the bone to put food on this table, the very table you are now trying to steal from us. You are going to throw your own flesh and blood, your sister's 5 innocent children, out onto the freezing street on Christmas Day. What kind of monster did I raise? I adjusted my sunglasses, watching a heron dive into the azure water in front of my villa. The guilt trip was a classic Brenda maneuver. Whenever her financial irresponsibility or blatant favoritism was exposed, she immediately weaponized her motherhood. I refused to let the emotional blackmail take root. You are not on the street today, Mom, I replied, my voice perfectly steady. A 30-day notice to vacate is a standard legal procedure. And let us be very clear about who is stealing from whom. You allowed Trent to gamble away your entire retirement fund. When the bank came to take this house last year, you begged me to save you. I paid $85,000 in cash to purchase the deed through my corporate trust. I became your landlord. We signed a legally binding lease agreement. I am your mother, not your tenant, Brenda wailed. You signed the paperwork, Mom. And that paperwork had a very specific clause. No unapproved long-term residents. You moved Kiara, Trent, and their 5 children into my property, rent-free. You let a 38-year-old white man live in my house without paying a single dime toward the utilities, the upkeep, or the property taxes, all while he mocked my career at every family dinner. You violated the lease. My property management firm is simply executing the penalty for your breach of contract. We had nowhere else to go, Kiara's voice suddenly shrieked, echoing loudly as she snatched the phone from Brenda. Trent was going through a transitional period with his investments. He is an entrepreneur, Jada. He takes risks. You would not understand that because you just play on the internet all day. He takes risks with other people's money, Kiara, I corrected her. He took Mom's retirement money. He took the safety net I built for her. He is a fraud. He is a visionary, Kiara screamed back, the delusion so deeply ingrained it bordered on psychosis. He just needed some capital to get his trading portfolio off the ground. And so what if Mom gave him some money to help him out? He deserved a break. He has been under so much pressure trying to provide for our family. I sat up straight in my lounge chair, gripping the phone. The salt breeze suddenly felt very cold. Wait, are you telling me you knew? You knew Trent took Mom's retirement money to day trade crypto? Of course I knew, Kiara yelled, her voice shrill and utterly devoid of remorse. He is my husband. We are a team. Mom wanted to invest in our future. It is not our fault the market crashed. And it certainly is not a crime for a mother to help her daughter's family. You have millions of dollars sitting in bank accounts, Jada. We saw the Forbes article. You have all this money, and for what? You do not have a husband. You do not have children. You do not have a real life. You do not even need the money. We needed it to survive. The sheer, unadulterated entitlement of her confession hung in the air. Kiara knew. My sister knew her husband was draining our mother's accounts, pushing Brenda into foreclosure, and she completely supported it. She justified stealing the very funds I had to replace simply because I was single and childless. In her mind, my lack of a husband meant my wealth was public property free for the taking by the only man in the family. Let me get this straight, I said, my tone dropping to a dangerous whisper. You knew Trent bankrupted Mom. You knew I had to step in and buy the house to save her from living in a shelter. And yet you still had the nerve to drop your 5 kids on my porch this morning and demand I babysit, so you and the thief you married could go on a luxury ski trip using my credit card. Because you owe us, Kiara cried, doubling down on her twisted logic. You are my sister. It takes a village to raise these kids, and you have done nothing but hoard your wealth. Trent is trying to build generational wealth for the Williams family, and you are just a selfish, bitter woman trying to tear a black family apart. Trent is a white man stealing from black women, Kiara. I said the absolute truth, cutting through her hysteria like a blade. He is a parasite, and you are his willing accomplice. You actively watched him destroy Mom's finances, and then you both tried to drain my trust account to go drink hot cocoa in Aspen. Brenda could be heard sobbing loudly in the background, her cries growing more frantic as Kiara's admission finally sank in. Even Brenda, with her endless capacity for denial, could not ignore the fact that her golden child actively participated in her financial ruin. "Give me the phone!" Brenda cried out. There was a brief scuffle, the sound of the phone fumbling against clothing, before Brenda's voice returned to the speaker. She was breathless, her tone shifting from manipulative anger to genuine, unfiltered terror. "Jada, please." I did not know Kiara was in on it. I thought Trent was just trying to help me grow my savings. You have to believe me. You cannot evict me. I will kick them out. I will make Trent leave today. Just please, call the management company and tear up the orange sticker. The sticker stays, Mom, I replied. You made your choices. You lied to the church, you slandered my name, and you allowed that man to disrespect me in my own home. I am not saving you from the consequences of your own actions anymore. I will do anything. Brenda begged, her voice cracking. I will apologize on Facebook. I will tell the pastor the truth. Just do not take my home. I looked out at the Indian Ocean, processing the complete collapse of the matriarch who had terrorized my self-esteem for over 3 decades. She was completely at my mercy, willing to trade her golden child and her precious son-in-law for a roof over her head. But the well of my empathy had run completely dry. There was one more layer to this financial betrayal, one more secret I had kept hidden in my arsenal, and it was time to drop the final match on this gasoline-soaked bridge. The line crackled with the heavy, frantic breathing of my mother. When Brenda finally spoke, the authoritarian church matriarch tone was entirely gone. In its place was the weeping, manipulative cadence she had perfected over 3 decades of making me the bad guy. "Jada, you listen to me right now!" Brenda cried, her voice vibrating with manufactured agony. "I am your mother. I carried you in my womb for 9 agonizing months. I gave you life. I worked my fingers to the bone to put food on this table, the very table you are now trying to steal from us. You are going to throw your own flesh and blood, your sister's 5 innocent children, out onto the freezing street on Christmas Day. What kind of monster did I raise?" I adjusted my sunglasses, watching a heron dive into the azure water in front of my villa. The guilt trip was a classic Brenda maneuver. Whenever her financial irresponsibility or blatant favoritism was exposed, she immediately weaponized her motherhood. I refused to let the emotional blackmail take root. "Listen to me very carefully, Brenda. I said your name because you lost the privilege of being called Mom about 10 minutes ago. I'm going to give you one single chance to stay in my property. I will cancel the eviction notice and allow you to remain in the house under 2 non-negotiable conditions." Brenda sniffled loudly, her breath hitching. "Anything, Jada, I promise. Just tell me what to do." "Condition number 1, I said, my voice echoing off the glass walls of my Maldivian villa. Trent packs his bags and leaves my property by midnight tonight. He hands over his keys. He does not sleep on the couch. He does not camp out in the basement. He is physically removed from the premises. Condition number 2, Kiara gets a job. She takes down her fake luxury internet accounts, she updates her resume tomorrow morning, and she starts contributing to her own life. If either of these conditions are not met by sunrise, I will have the local sheriff execute the eviction order. The silence on the other end of the line was absolute. For a moment, the only sound was the distant crashing of waves against my private deck. Then the eruption happened. "You cannot do that!" Kiara shrieked, her voice entirely stripped of its usual haughty confidence. "You cannot kick my husband out on Christmas. Where is he supposed to go? He is the man of the house, Jada. You cannot just disrespect a marriage like that because you are bitter." "Hi is a guest in my house, Kiara," I replied smoothly. "A guest who has overstayed his welcome by about 5 years." Brenda finally found her voice, though it was weak and trembling. "Jada, please be reasonable. Trent is part of this family. He helps me around the house. I need him here. I am an older woman. My arthritis flares up in the winter. Who is going to help me if Trent is gone? I need my support system. Without the care stipend you send me every month, I can barely afford my medications and utilities. If you kick Trent out, I will not be able to survive." There it was, the opening I had been waiting for. The final spectacular lie she was going to tell before I burned the entire facade to the ground. I took a long, slow sip of my champagne, letting the cold liquid ground me. "You mean the $5,000 care stipend I wire into your personal checking account on the first of every single month?" I asked, my tone dropping an octave. "The $5,000 you told me you desperately needed for your physical therapy, your premium health insurance, and the rising cost of groceries. Is that the money you are talking about, Brenda?" "Yes," Brenda cried defensively. "I need that money, Jada. You know my health is failing. You know I cannot work." I let out a laugh that was entirely devoid of humor. It was a sharp, biting sound that made the line go dead quiet again. "Do not insult my intelligence, Brenda," I said, leaning forward. "I own a multinational corporation. I employ forensic accountants who track global assets for billionaires. Did you honestly think I would just blindly wire $60,000 a year into a checking account without monitoring where those funds ended up?" I could hear Brenda's breath catch in her throat. "Let us talk about your medical expenses, Brenda." I continued, my voice slicing through the digital connection. "Let us talk about how every single time my $5,000 transfer hit your account, it was completely emptied within 48 hours. Let us talk about the routing numbers. I tracked the destination of every single dime. Not a single dollar went to a pharmacy. Not a single dollar went to a physical therapist. Not a single dollar went to your utility bills." "Jada, I can explain," Brenda stammered, her voice barely a whisper. "You do not need to explain because I already have the receipts," I said. "Every month for the last 3 years, you took the money your black daughter earned through blood, sweat, and tears, and you funneled it directly into Trent's day trading accounts. You took my hard-earned wealth and handed it over to a mediocre white man so he could pretend to be a Wall Street trader in Kiara's basement." Kiara gasped loudly in the background. "Mom, you told me that money was from your secret investments. You told Trent you were the one funding his trading portfolio." The web of lies was so dense they were even deceiving each other. Brenda had been playing the role of the wealthy, supportive matriarch to Trent and Kiara, using my money to buy their affection. "You bought his love, Brenda," I said, exposing the ugly truth she had hidden for years. "You wanted to show off at church. You loved bragging about your handsome corporate son-in-law. You loved the aesthetic of having a white man in the family who wore expensive vests and talked about stock portfolios at Thanksgiving. It made you feel superior to the other women in the congregation. But he was not a corporate genius, was he? He was a spectacular failure. And instead of letting him fail, you stole from me to fund his delusions." "I did not steal from you," Brenda cried, her voice cracking with shame. "You gave me that money. I was trying to help him build generational wealth for our family. He promised he was going to hit it big. He promised he was going to buy me a mansion. I just wanted us to be on top for once." "I lost every penny, Brenda," I said mercilessly. "He drained your retirement. He forced your house into foreclosure. And then he drained the stipend I sent you. And you let him do it because your obsession with appearances was stronger than your love for your own daughter. You let him sit at my dinner table and insult my career while he was literally surviving on my paycheck." There was a sudden commotion on the other end of the line. Heavy footsteps echoed through the speaker, followed by the sound of a door slamming open against a wall. "Is this true?" a man's voice demanded. It was Trent. He had obviously walked into the room and heard the entire exchange on speakerphone. His voice was not dripping with its usual smug condescension. It was high-pitched and tight with panic. "Trent, honey, please let me explain," Brenda pleaded, her voice shaking with terror. "Is it true?" Brenda. Trent yelled, his voice booming through the phone. "Has the money been coming from Jada this entire time? Have you been using her money to fund my accounts?" "Yes, Trent," I answered for her, making sure my voice was loud and clear. "Every single dollar you lost on those garbage crypto trades came directly from the cute little travel blog you love to mock. You have been living on my charity for 3 years. And as of this morning, that charity is permanently revoked. The family trust is gone, the monthly stipend is cancelled, and my property manager is evicting you. You are completely broke, Trent." The realization hit him like a freight train. I could hear the absolute collapse of his entire identity through the phone. Trent was a man who built his entire self-worth on the illusion of financial superiority. He had convinced himself he was a misunderstood genius who just needed a little capital to make his millions. Now he was standing in a house he did not own, realizing he was entirely dependent on a black woman he had spent years disrespecting. "Trent, where are you going?" Kiara yelled, panic rising in her throat as heavy footsteps began moving rapidly across the hardwood floor. "I am leaving," Trent snapped, his voice devoid of any warmth or affection. "What do you mean you are leaving?" Kiara screamed. "It is Christmas. The kids are in the living room. We are supposed to figure this out as a team. We are a family, Trent." "There is no team," Kiara. Trent shouted back. The sound of zippers opening and closing, indicating he was violently shoving items into a bag. "Your mother lied to me. Your sister cut off the money. We are being evicted. There is no money left. I am not staying here to be humiliated, and I am certainly not staying here to go down with this sinking ship. I am done." "Trent, please do not do this," Brenda begged, her voice muffled, as if she was physically trying to grab his arm. "We can talk to Jada. We can apologize. We can make her turn the money back on." "Get off me," Brenda. Trent yelled. "The bank of Jada is closed. Do you not get it? She is never giving us another dime. I am not spending the rest of my life living in a tiny apartment with 5 screaming kids and a broke mother-in-law." The sound of his betrayal was absolute music to my ears. He was stripping away the final layer of their delusion. He did not love Kiara. He did not respect Brenda. He only loved the lifestyle my money provided. And the second the money vanished, his loyalty evaporated into thin air. "Trent, you cannot just walk out on us." Kiara was full-on sobbing now, her voice echoing with pure desperation. "Watch me," Trent spat. I heard the heavy thud of a duffel bag hitting the floor, followed by the distinct sound of a set of keys being snatched off the kitchen counter. A door slammed so hard it rattled the phone speaker. Through the speaker of my phone, the heavy thud of the front door slamming shut reverberated like a gunshot. The immediate aftermath was not silence, but a chaotic symphony of pure panic. I remained perfectly still on my lounge chair in the Maldives, listening to the empire of lies shatter into a million jagged pieces. I could hear Kiara screaming Trent's name, her voice raw and tearing at the edges. The sound of her frantic footsteps echoed across the hardwood floors of the foyer. "Trent, come back here. You cannot do this. We have 5 children. You cannot just walk out on us on Christmas." His voice filtered back through the phone, distant but venomous. "Watch me, Kiara. I am not staying in this sinking ship. Your mother lied to me. Your sister cut off the money. I am not spending the rest of my life trapped in a tiny apartment with a broke family. I have my own life to think about." The sheer callousness of his words hung in the air. This was the man Brenda had practically worshipped. This was the man Kiara had used to mock my single status for half a decade. The moment the financial illusion evaporated, his loyalty vanished instantly. He did not care about his 5 children. He did not care about the vows he took. He only cared about the premium lifestyle my bank account had secretly provided him. There was a sudden scuffle. I heard Kiara let out a sharp cry, followed by the distinct sound of a body hitting the drywall. "Mom," he pushed me. Kiara wailed, the absolute terror in her voice unmistakable. He pushed me out of the way. Brenda finally snapped out of her paralyzed shock. "Trent, you get back here right now. You cannot put your hands on my daughter. I will call the police." "Call them, Brenda." Trent yelled, his voice dripping with condescension and unapologetic white privilege. Tell them you funded my accounts. Tell them about the wire transfers. See who the police believe. You people are pathetic. You people. The racial undertone was not lost on me, and I knew it was not lost on Brenda and Kiara either. Trent had spent years playing the role of the progressive savior, integrating himself into our black family, as long as it came with a fully funded luxury ride. The second the money dried up, he reduced my mother and sister to you people. The sound of the heavy oak front door violently swinging open and hitting the exterior brick wall echoed through the phone. Wait a minute, Brenda shrieked, her voice suddenly pitching an octave higher. Where are my keys? He took my keys. Trent, give me back the keys to my Lexus. You do not have a car. The engine of Brenda's fully loaded Lexus SUV roared to life in the driveway. I had paid the insurance premium on that exact vehicle just 2 weeks ago. I listened with cold satisfaction as the tires squealed against the freezing pavement. Trent was not just abandoning his wife and 5 children, he was committing grand theft auto to secure his getaway. The sound of the engine faded down the street, leaving nothing but the traumatic echoes of weeping children and 2 completely broken women inside the house. For a long minute, nobody picked up the phone. I could hear the 5 kids crying in the living room, asking where their dad was going. I heard Brenda sobbing into her hands, repeating the phrase, my car, he took my car, over and over again. Then the rustling of fabric indicated someone had finally picked up the device. Jada. Kiara breathed my name into the microphone. Her voice was unrecognizable. The haughty, entitled golden child was completely gone. In her place was a terrified, desperate woman who had just watched her entire fake reality drive away in a stolen vehicle. I am still here, Kiara, I said, my voice steady and completely devoid of pity. He left us. She sobbed, a deep, guttural sound that tore from her chest. He pushed me into the wall and he took Mom's car and he just left. He left the kids. He left me. Jada, he has nothing. He does not have a job. He does not have savings. Where is he going to go? Probably to a pawn shop to sell the designer watches you bought him with Uncle Calvin's roof money, I replied sharply. Kiara ignored the jab, entirely consumed by her own crisis. Jada, you have to help me. You have to call the police. I paused, swirling the last bit of champagne in my glass. Why do I need to call the police, Kiara? You are holding a smartphone. Dial 911 and report the domestic assault and the stolen vehicle. I cannot do it, she cried, her breathing becoming rapid and shallow. I am too scared, Jada. Please, if I call the police and they arrest him, it will be on the public record. The church will find out. The other moms at the private school will see it on the news. Everyone will know my husband left me and stole a car. I cannot be the face of this scandal. I cannot have my kids see their father in handcuffs in our own driveway. Please, Jada, you call them. You are overseas. They will not put your name on the local police blotter. Even now, even after her husband had physically shoved her aside and abandoned their children, she was still agonizing over her social standing. She was still trying to protect the illusion of her perfect marriage. Let me understand your logic, Kiara, I said, articulating every word with absolute precision. You spent the entire morning slandering my name on Facebook. You told 400 people I was a barren, miserable spinster who hated your children. You allowed your husband to drain our mother's retirement, and then you demanded I wire you $20,000 to go skiing. And now, after that same man has assaulted you and stolen a vehicle, you want me to play the role of the invisible savior again, just to protect your reputation. I am sorry, Jada. I am so sorry, Kiara begged, the tears choking her words. I was just trying to keep him happy. He gets so angry when he feels like he is not providing. I had to pretend he was successful so he would not leave me. I knew he was taking Mom's money, but I thought he would actually make it back. I thought if I just posted enough pictures on Instagram looking like a wealthy family, he would eventually step up and become the man I needed him to be. I was terrified of being a single mother. I was terrified of ending up like you. Ending up like me, I repeated, letting the insult hang in the air. You mean ending up independently wealthy, resting in a private overwater villa in the Maldives, without a parasite draining my bank accounts and pushing me into walls? Yes, Kiara, ending up like me sounds truly horrific. Please, Jada. She wept, ignoring the sarcasm entirely. I am begging you. Call the police. Track the car. Do whatever you do with your lawyers. I do not know how to handle this. I do not have a dollar to my name. My debit card is tied to his accounts and he probably drained whatever was left. We have no food for Christmas dinner. The kids are terrified. Please help us. I looked out at the vast, endless blue of the ocean. My sister, who had spent years acting as my superior, was now reduced to pleading for my intervention. She was completely, utterly dependent on the very woman she had tried to publicly destroy just hours prior. I will handle the police, Kiara. I said, my tone shifting from sister to corporate executive. I will have my security team track the GPS in Mom's Lexus. I will ensure Trent is intercepted before he crosses state lines. But I am not doing this to protect your reputation. I am doing this because I pay the insurance on that vehicle, and I refuse to let a thief damage my property. Thank you, Jada. Thank you so much. Kiara sobbed, relief washing over her voice. Do not thank me yet. I interrupted cleanly, cutting off her gratitude. I told you I would handle the police, but I am not handling this mess quietly. I am done playing the invisible ghost who sweeps up the shattered pieces of your lives so you can smile at church on Sunday. If you want my legal team to intercept your husband, and if you want me to pause the eviction notice so you and those 5 kids do not freeze on the street tonight, there is going to be a reckoning. What do you mean? Kiara asked, her voice trembling. I mean, I am sending you a Zoom link in exactly 1 hour. I commanded. You are going to log on. Brenda is going to log on. You are going to text Aunt Shirley, Uncle Calvin, and every other loudmouthed relative who felt the need to attack me on Facebook today, and you are going to tell them their presence is mandatory. Jada, you cannot make us do a family video call right now. My house is in shambles. My eyes are swollen. I cannot face the family. You had no problem facing the family when you were calling me a child-hating narcissist online, Kiara. I snapped, the authority in my voice, leaving absolutely zero room for negotiation. You wanted an audience for our family business. You are going to get one. 1 hour, Kiara. Get everyone on the screen. If you are not in that meeting room at exactly 8 p.m., Atlanta time, I will cancel the vehicle tracking report. I will let Trent sell that Lexus to a chop shop, and I will instruct my property manager to change the locks on that house by tomorrow morning. I will be there, she whispered, completely defeated. We will be there. I ended the call. I did not wait for her to say goodbye. I immediately opened a secure encrypted messaging application and contacted the head of my global security division in New York, Victor. I typed, keeping the instructions brief and absolute. My brother-in-law Trent just stole a black Lexus SUV from the Atlanta property. License plate is registered under my secondary holding company. The vehicle has an active GPS tracker installed. Locate the vehicle, coordinate with the Georgia State Patrol, and have him intercepted immediately. Do not press grand theft auto charges yet. I need leverage. Have the intercepting officers detain him on the side of the highway and give him a choice. He either logs into a Zoom meeting link I am about to provide, or he goes to county jail for the holidays. My secure messaging app chimed with a confirmation from Victor in New York. The GPS tracker embedded in the Lexus was fully operational. Trent was currently blazing northbound on Interstate 85, tearing out of the Atlanta suburbs at nearly 90 miles an hour. He was making a desperate run toward the state line, clearly intending to put as much distance between himself and his crumbling fake reality as possible. I picked up my phone and dialed my sister's number. Kiara answered on the first half ring, her breath hitching wildly. Jada, did you find him? She asked, her voice stripped of every ounce of pride she had ever possessed. Are the police going to bring the car back? I did find him, Kiara, I said, keeping my voice perfectly level. My security team is coordinating with the Georgia State Patrol right now. But before I give the final authorization to intercept that vehicle, we need to establish exactly how this evening is going to proceed. I am not swooping in to quietly clean up your disastrous choices so you can go to church on Sunday and pretend your marriage is flawless. The era of me protecting your reputation is officially over. What do you mean? Kiara panicked. You said you would handle the police. You cannot let them arrest him, Jada. The scandal will ruin me. The other mothers at the private school will find out. The private school I pay for, Kiara, I reminded her sharply. The private school you brag about on Instagram while your husband steals our mother's retirement fund. Your social standing is a hallucination funded by my bank account. You do not get to make demands about a scandal when you spent your entire Christmas morning publicly slandering my name to every relative and church member we know. I was just stressed out. She sobbed, attempting to retreat into her familiar victim routine. I did not mean those things, Jada. I was just trying to keep Trent calm. And now you are going to face the people you lied to. I commanded. I am sending you a Zoom meeting link in exactly 2 minutes. You are going to log on. Brenda is going to log on. You are going to forward that link to Aunt Shirley, Uncle Calvin, Deacon Thomas, and every single person you tagged in that ridiculous Facebook post. You are going to tell them their attendance is absolutely mandatory to resolve the family crisis you initiated. I cannot do that, Jada. Kiara wept loudly. Mom is hyperventilating in the kitchen. My eyes are completely swollen. Aunt Shirley just texted me that she is taking Mom to small claims court. They hate us right now. If we get on a video call, they are going to tear us apart. I cannot face them. You had no problem facing them when you were calling me a barren, miserable spinster. I shot back, my voice hardening into steel. You wanted an audience, Kiara. You wanted to perform for the crowd. Now you are going to get the spotlight you begged for. You have 45 minutes to get everyone into that digital meeting room. If I log on and do not see the entire family present, I will call the State Patrol and instruct them to process Trent for grand theft auto. I will let him sit in a county jail cell until his arraignment, and I will have my property management firm change the locks on Brenda's house by sunrise. Do I make myself absolutely clear? Yes, she whispered, her voice entirely broken. I will send the link. Just please do not let them lock him up. I ended the call without offering a single word of comfort. I opened my email and generated a secure video conferencing link, setting myself as the sole host with absolute administrative privileges. I forwarded the link to Kiara and then turned my attention back to the encrypted communication channel with Victor. Victor sent me a live satellite mapping feed. A blinking red dot represented the Lexus currently weaving erratically through heavy holiday traffic. Target is approaching the exit for Gainesville. Victor typed his messages, appearing in rapid succession. Georgia State Patrol has 4 cruisers in pursuit. They are running parallel, but keeping their distance to avoid initiating a high-speed chase in a populated corridor. Awaiting your final authorization to execute a felony traffic stop. Execute the stop, I replied. Do not let him cross the state line. Instruct the commanding officer that the vehicle owner desires to speak with the suspect prior to formal charges being filed. Put me on speakerphone the moment he is detained. Understood, Victor responded. I walked out onto the expansive wooden deck of my Maldivian villa. The sun had completely set, leaving a velvet black sky pierced by a million brilliant stars. The ambient lighting of the infinity pool cast a soft turquoise glow against the glass walls. I poured myself a fresh glass of sparkling water and set my phone on the outdoor dining table. I watched the live tracking map with cold satisfaction. The red dot suddenly decelerated sharply. A new message from Victor appeared. GSP has initiated the stop. Target is surrounded. On a dark stretch of interstate thousands of miles away, Trent was about to experience the terrifying collapse of his unearned privilege. He had spent his entire life failing upward, shielded by his complexion and his gender, utilizing his proximity to my black family to secure a luxury lifestyle he could never afford on his own. He was accustomed to talking his way out of every situation, using corporate jargon and false bravado to intimidate my mother and manipulate my sister. But white privilege had an expiration date when you were driving a stolen vehicle registered to a multi-million-dollar corporate holding company. My phone screen shifted from the secure messaging app to an incoming call. It was a routed connection through Victor's security network, linking directly to the commanding officer on the scene. I tapped accept. Miss Williams. A deep, authoritative voice spoke through the speaker. This is Captain Miller with the Georgia State Patrol. We have the vehicle secured. The suspect is detained outside the vehicle. He is currently uncooperative and aggressively claiming the vehicle belongs to his mother-in-law. I smiled. Is he in handcuffs, Captain? Yes, ma'am, the officer replied. He resisted standard procedure, so he was placed in restraints for officer safety. We ran the plates and confirmed the vehicle is registered to your corporate LLC. We are prepared to process him for felony theft by taking, but your security director advised you requested verbal contact first. I appreciate your coordination, Captain Miller. I said, my voice projecting absolute corporate authority. Please put the phone on speaker and hold it up to his face. There was a brief shuffling sound followed by the unmistakable noise of highway traffic rushing past. Then I heard Trent. He was out of breath and his voice was pitched high with an embarrassing, frantic panic. "Get this phone out of my face," Trent was yelling. "I told you this is a massive misunderstanding. You are making a huge mistake. I am an entrepreneur. My mother-in-law, Brenda Williams, gave me the keys to this car. Call her right now. She will tell you I have full permission to drive this vehicle. I know the mayor of Atlanta. You people are going to lose your badges for treating me like a criminal." "Trent," I said, my voice cutting through his hysterical rambling like a blade. The line went dead silent. The only sound was the wind whipping across the microphone. "Jada." Trent breathed, his voice suddenly dropping its arrogant edge. "Jada, tell these idiot cops to take these cuffs off me. They pulled me over like I am some kind of gang member. Tell them the car belongs to Brenda. Tell them to let me go right now." I let out a slow, deliberate laugh. It was not a warm sound. It was the sound of a predator cornering its prey. "The car does not belong to Brenda, Trent," I said, pronouncing every syllable with lethal precision. "The car belongs to my secondary holding company, the same company that owns the house you live in, the same company that funded the accounts you drained. I pay the insurance. I hold the title. You stole a luxury vehicle from a corporate entity and crossed 3 county lines. You are currently facing a minimum of 5 years in a Georgia state penitentiary for grand theft auto." "You cannot do this to me," Trent shouted, his panic mutating into pure rage. "I am your family. You cannot lock me up over a technicality. I helped you build your business. You owe me equity. My lawyers will destroy you, Jada." "Your lawyers charge by the hour, Trent," I reminded him coldly. "And seeing as I just permanently dissolved the trust account you used to pretend you had money, we both know you cannot even afford a public defender. You are standing on the side of a highway in handcuffs because you are a thief. You stole from my mother. You assaulted my sister. You abandoned 5 children on Christmas. And then you tried to steal my property to escape the consequences." "Jada, please," Trent begged, his arrogant facade completely shattering. The reality of the flashing red and blue lights reflecting off his face must have finally broken through his delusions. "Please do not press charges. If I get a felony on my record, I will never be able to trade again. I will never get a job. Kiara will leave me. Just tell the officer to let me walk away. I will leave the car here. I will walk to a gas station. Just please do not ruin my life." "You ruined your own life, Trent," I said. "But I am going to give you exactly one opportunity to avoid spending Christmas night in a holding cell. I am hosting a mandatory family video conference in exactly 10 minutes. Every single aunt, uncle, and church member you and Kiara lied to today is going to be on that call." "I cannot get on a video call right now," Trent cried, his voice cracking. "I am in handcuffs on the side of the interstate. Look at me. I am humiliated." "That is the entire point," I snapped. "You are going to log into that Zoom meeting from the back of that police cruiser. You are going to sit there with those flashing lights illuminating your face, and you are going to listen silently while I expose every single lie you and my mother have told for the last 5 years. You are going to let the entire family see exactly what a fake corporate titan looks like when he gets caught stealing from a black woman." "I will not do it," Trent spat, trying to muster one final shred of defiance. "You cannot humiliate me in front of everyone." "Captain Miller," I said, raising my voice slightly to address the officer holding the phone, "the suspect is refusing my terms. Please proceed with the formal grand theft auto charges. Have the vehicle impounded and initiate his transfer to the county detention center. I will have my legal team forward the ownership documentation to the district attorney by morning." "Wait!" Trent screamed, struggling against the restraints. "Wait! Jada, stop! Do not let them take me to jail. I will do it. I will get on the call. Just tell them to put me in the back of the car and give me my phone. I will log on. I promise." I paused, letting him sweat in the freezing Georgia air for 10 agonizing seconds. "Captain Miller," I said smoothly, "please place the suspect in the rear of your cruiser. Remove his handcuffs so he can operate his mobile device, but keep the doors locked. He is going to attend a virtual meeting. If he attempts to end the call or exit the vehicle at any point, you have my absolute authorization to proceed with the felony arrest." "Understood, Miss Williams." Captain Miller replied, a hint of amusement in his professional tone. "We will secure him in the vehicle now." I ended the connection. I checked my wristwatch. It was time. I opened the Zoom application on my laptop and initiated the meeting. As the host, I immediately configured the settings to mute all participants upon entry and restricted their ability to unmute themselves. I wanted total absolute control of the narrative. No one was going to talk over me. No one was going to launch into a religious sermon or scream defensive excuses. They were going to sit in digital silence and watch the truth dismantle their lives. I positioned my laptop on the outdoor dining table, ensuring the camera angle captured the breathtaking Maldivian sunset behind me. The sky was burning with vivid shades of orange and deep purple reflecting off the endless expanse of the Indian Ocean. I looked wealthy, unbothered, and utterly untouchable. It was the exact opposite of the miserable, bitter woman they had tried to portray me as. The waiting room began to populate instantly. Aunt Shirley logged on first, her face pinched with a mixture of anger and extreme curiosity. Uncle Calvin appeared next, sitting in his living room, looking stern and ready for a fight. Deacon Thomas from the church joined, his camera angled up at his chin, highlighting his deep frown. Then came a flood of cousins, extended relatives, and family friends who had been dragged into this mess by Kiara's ridiculous Facebook post. I admitted them all into the main room, watching their faces register confusion as they realized their microphones were locked. They could see me sitting in tropical luxury, but they could not speak. Then Brenda and Kiara logged on, sharing a single screen from the Atlanta house. The visual contrast was jarring. They looked completely destroyed. Brenda's usually immaculate church hair was disheveled, and her face was puffy from hours of crying. Kiara was clutching a crumpled tissue, her designer makeup smeared down her cheeks in dark trails. They looked like two women who had just survived a shipwreck, only to realize the lifeboat was sinking too. I left them in the waiting room for an extra 2 minutes, letting the rest of the family stare at my serene backdrop. I wanted the anticipation to build until the tension was suffocating. Finally, the last participant appeared in the waiting room. Trent. I clicked admit. Trent's video feed popped onto the screen. He was sitting in the pitch-black rear seat of a Georgia State Patrol cruiser. The thick metal caging separating him from the front seats was clearly visible. The red and blue emergency lights from the police vehicles parked behind him flashed rhythmically, illuminating his pale, terrified face in harsh, alternating colors. He looked exactly like what he was, a criminal who had reached the end of his rope. A collective physical reaction rippled across the Zoom gallery. I watched Aunt Shirley gasp and cover her mouth with her hand. Uncle Calvin leaned so close to his camera, his forehead nearly touched the lens. Deacon Thomas's eyes widened in sheer disbelief. Brenda buried her face in her hands, and Kiara let out a visible sob, shaking her head back and forth as if trying to deny the reality displayed on her screen. The stage was perfectly set. The audience was captive. The antagonists were cornered. I reached forward and clicked the unmute button for my own microphone. I looked directly into the camera lens, projecting my voice with calm, unwavering authority. "Good evening, everyone," I said, the sound of the ocean waves providing a soft backing track to my words. "I apologize for calling this meeting on Christmas Day. I know many of you had wonderful dinners and family celebrations interrupted. However, earlier today, my mother Brenda and my sister Kiara decided it was appropriate to use a public forum to label me a thief, a narcissist, and a disgrace to this family. They invited all of you into our private business." I paused, letting my eyes scan the gallery of shocked faces, so I decided to honor their request for an audience. I continued. "You were all brought here today under the impression that I abandoned my family to chase men overseas. You were told I selfishly locked my mother out of a family emergency fund out of pure jealousy. But as you can clearly see by looking at the screen of my brother-in-law Trent, who is currently detained in the back of a police cruiser for grand theft auto, the story you were sold is a complete and absolute fabrication." I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the teakwood table. "Tonight, we are not dealing in gossip. We are not dealing in Facebook statuses or church prayer requests. Tonight, we are dealing exclusively in receipts. I am going to show you exactly who funds this family. I am going to show you exactly who stole what. And when I am finished, The Bank of Jada will be permanently, unconditionally closed. I moved my cursor and clicked the green button at the bottom of the screen. Share screen. The document materialized on the screens of 42 different people simultaneously. It was a high-resolution scan of a property deed, certified by the state of Georgia. I had my presentation software set up to automatically highlight the most critical sections in bright yellow. I used my cursor to circle the date of the transfer, which was exactly 13 months ago. Then I moved my cursor down to the line indicating the sole legal owner of the property. The name listed was not Brenda Williams. It was a holding company that I had registered in Delaware. For the past year, my mother has been hosting Sunday dinners, hosting church group meetings, and bragging about the equity in her beautiful suburban estate. I said, my voice carrying a quiet, lethal resonance through the digital connection. She has been acting like the queen of a castle she lost a long time ago. The truth is that Brenda defaulted on her mortgage. The bank initiated foreclosure proceedings. I stepped in and paid $85,000 in cash to purchase the deed and keep a roof over her head. She is my tenant. I unmuted the gallery just long enough to let the reaction bleed through the speakers. A collective gasp echoed from living rooms across the country. Aunt Shirley let out a sharp sound of absolute disgust. Brenda tried to speak, her voice shaking with panic. Jada, you do not need to show them the legal papers. We can handle this offline. I will pay you back. I promise I will pay you back. You do not have a single dollar to your name, Mom, I replied, cleanly cutting her off. And we are not handling anything offline because you chose to take this online first. You wanted everyone to pray for my hardened heart. I think they need to know exactly what they are praying for. I clicked to the next slide in my presentation. This is the second exhibit, I announced. The screen shifted to a detailed chronological bank ledger. On the left side of the screen, I showed the outgoing transfers from my personal checking account. On the first of every month for the last 36 months, exactly $5,000 was wired into Brenda's primary account. I set up a care stipend for my mother because she claimed her health was failing and she could not afford her premium medical insurance or her physical therapy. I explained, watching the horrified faces of my extended family. But my accountants noticed a very interesting pattern. I clicked a button and the right side of the screen populated with Brenda's outgoing transfers. Every single time my $5,000 hit her account, she immediately wired the exact same amount to an external investment portfolio. I highlighted the name on the receiving portfolio. It belonged to Trent. Uncle Calvin slammed his fist down on his coffee table, his microphone picking up the sharp crack. Are you telling me that white boy has been taking your money to play the stock market while Brenda was begging me for cash to fix her roof? I clicked to the next slide, which displayed a brutally stark line graph charting Trent's cryptocurrency trading history. I was not playing the stock market, Uncle Calvin, I corrected him. He was throwing darts at volatile digital coins. As you can see by this chart, Trent lost 94% of everything he invested. He took my mother's entire retirement savings, which caused the foreclosure, and then he took over $180,000 of my money over 3 years. He literally burned our family resources to the ground while wearing expensive vests and giving you all financial advice at the Thanksgiving cookout. I unmuted Trent's specific audio feed. He was sitting in the back of the Georgia State Patrol cruiser, the red and blue lights flashing violently across his pale, sweating face. Trent, I said, addressing him directly, would you like to explain to the family how the real world works? Would you like to tell us about your diversified portfolio? Trent swallowed hard, looking frantically at the camera. Jada, you are taking this out of context. It was a bear market. The global economic indicators shifted unexpectedly. I was utilizing a high-risk, high-reward strategy to build generational wealth for this family. If Brenda had just given me a little more time, the market would have corrected itself. You do not understand macroeconomics. Aunt Shirley let out a laugh that sounded like a gunshot. Macroeconomics. You are sitting in the back of a police car because you stole a Lexus and tried to run away from your own kids. You are nothing but a con artist. Deacon Thomas leaned close to his camera, his face tight with righteous anger. Brenda, you sat in the front pew of the church and let us take up a collection for you when you said your medical bills were drowning you. You took money from working families to feed this man's gambling addiction. You let him steal from your own daughter, and then you had the nerve to ask the congregation to pray for Jada's soul. Brenda burst into heavy theatrical tears, burying her face in her hands. I did not know what else, she sobbed. He is my son-in-law. Kiara loves him. I just wanted my daughter to have a good husband. I wanted them to be successful. Kiara suddenly grabbed the device from her mother, pulling the camera close to her tear-streaked face. Her designer makeup was completely ruined, her eyes swollen and frantic. You do not understand. Kiara cried, her voice cracking with pure desperation. I just wanted a luxury lifestyle. Is that a crime? Everyone else on Instagram has a husband who provides. Everyone else at the private school goes on ski trips to Aspen and flies first class. I just wanted my kids to have the best of everything. I wanted to be a good wife. Trent promised me we were going to be rich. I had to keep up appearances. Keep up appearances. I repeated the phrase, tasting like ash in my mouth. I clicked the final button on my presentation software. The screen split into a dozen different rectangular boxes. I had spent the last hour pulling Kiara's most popular social media posts and placing them directly adjacent to my own credit card statements. Let us talk about your luxury lifestyle, Kiara. I said, my tone dropping into a cold mechanical cadence. I highlighted the top left box. On August 12th, you posted a picture of your twin girls in their new private school uniforms. Your caption read, "Blessed to provide the absolute best education for my babies. Hard work pays off." I pointed to the document right next to the photo. Here is the receipt from my corporate account paying the $32,000 tuition invoice directly to the academy because Trent's debit card declined. I moved to the next box. On October 5th, you posted a mirror selfie holding a brand new Chanel tote bag. Your caption read, "Hubby always knows how to spoil me." I revealed the accompanying bank statement. Here's the record showing that purchase was made using the Family Emergency Trust Fund. You effectively used the money I set aside for our mother's healthcare to buy yourself a designer handbag so you could flex on the internet. The gallery of faces on the Zoom call shifted from shock to absolute disgust. I watched Aunt Shirley shake her head in quiet disbelief. Cousin Malik, who had always looked up to Trent, simply covered his eyes. I moved to the next image. Here is a picture of the 5-star catered spread at your baby shower. The one you told the entire church I ruined because I was a bitter spinster. I showed the zero-balance invoice with my signature at the bottom. I paid the $10,000 catering bill in full because the vendor was threatening to call the police on you for theft of services. I paid it to save you from going to jail. I stopped sharing my screen and allowed the gallery view to return. I wanted them to look directly into my eyes as I delivered the final verdict. Your entire existence is a curated lie, Kiara. I said the truth, ringing with absolute finality. Your luxury lifestyle is a hallucination funded entirely by the single lonely sister you love to mock. You and Trent produced nothing. You built nothing. You simply parasitized my success and then had the audacity to demand respect for it. The extended family turned on them with the kind of swift, merciless fury reserved only for those who betray their own blood. Aunt Shirley unmuted herself, her voice shaking with rage. Kiara, you are a disgrace. You paraded those children around in designer clothes paid for by your sister while you let your mother slide into foreclosure. And Brenda, you are worse. You sacrificed your own flesh and blood to prop up a useless white man just so you could look like you had a successful family at church. I am calling the pastor tonight. Do not ever show your face at our family reunions again. Uncle Calvin was equally ruthless. Brenda, I want my $5,000 back by tomorrow morning. I do not care if you have to sell that stolen Chanel bag to get it. You are a fraud. The church community members on the call began logging off one by one, shaking their heads in silent condemnation. The social standing Brenda had spent 3 decades meticulously building was completely annihilated in the span of 15 minutes. The respect she craved, the superiority she projected, it was all gone. Brenda dropped to her knees on the hardwood floor of the house she no longer owned, her wails echoing through the microphone. I am sorry, Jada. She sobbed, her voice hoarse and broken. I am so sorry. I was wrong. I just wanted the family to look good for the church. I just wanted people to think we made it. I wanted to be proud. Please forgive me. I stared at the woman who had spent my entire life making me feel small. You wanted to look good, I said, cutting through her apologies with clinical precision. But you were willing to let me freeze to make it happen. You were willing to let Trent steal my money, disrespect my career, and lock me out of my own family just so you could take pictures in matching sweaters. You did not want a daughter, Brenda. You wanted an ATM. I am done, I stated. The silence that followed was heavy, absolute, and profoundly peaceful. The silence in the digital meeting room was absolute. For 33 years, I had watched my mother control every narrative, manipulate every family gathering, and command the respect of our entire church congregation through sheer intimidation. Now she was on her knees, weeping into the hardwood floor of a house she did not own, completely stripped of her power. But I was not finished. Brenda, I want you to listen to me very carefully, I said, my voice slicing through her sobs. I am transferring the deed of the estate to a third-party corporate holding company managed by Vanguard Property Solutions. They are an aggressive commercial real estate firm based out of Chicago, and they do not care about your church standing or your arthritis. They have been instructed to proceed with the eviction. They will communicate with you exclusively through certified mail. If you refuse to vacate the premises at the end of your 30-day notice, they will arrive with the local sheriff and physically remove your belongings to the curb. You will not contact me to negotiate. You will not have Aunt Shirley call me to beg for an extension. My legal team has completely blocked your access to my world. My mother gasped, clutching her chest as if she had been physically struck. Jada, please, you cannot leave me to deal with a faceless corporation. I am your mother. Where am I supposed to go? You should have asked Trent that question before you let him gamble away your retirement, I replied coldly. I turned my attention to the other square on the screen. Kiara was shaking, visibly terrified of the reality crashing down around her. She had spent her entire adult life relying on her light-skinned privilege and her golden child status to avoid a single day of hard work. Now the safety net was completely gone. Kiara, I said, locking eyes with her through the camera lens. You asked how you are supposed to survive without Trent. You demanded that I fulfill my duty as your sister to provide for your 5 children, so I am going to do exactly that. Kiara let out a ragged breath, a desperate glimmer of hope flashing across her ruined face. Thank you, Jada, she whispered. I promise I will pay you back. I will do whatever you want. I held up my hand, stopping her immediately. Do not thank me, Kiara. You are not getting a single dime of my money. I have instructed my wealth manager to establish a highly restricted educational trust strictly for my nieces and nephews. The funds in this trust can only be used for their direct medical care, private school tuition, and future college expenses. The trust will be managed by an independent fiduciary in New York. You will have absolutely zero access to the principal balance. You will not be given a debit card. You will not be reimbursed for any lifestyle expenses. If the children need school supplies, the fiduciary will pay the school directly. You cannot touch this money to buy designer bags to fund your fake Instagram life, or to bail out your criminal husband. Kiara stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like a suffocating fish. But how am I supposed to feed them, Jada? How am I supposed to pay rent? You are going to do something you have never done in your entire life, Kiara, I said, delivering the final blow. You are going to get a job. You are going to wake up at 6 in the morning. You are going to clock in, and you are going to work for a paycheck. Welcome to the real world. I did not wait for her response. I looked at the gallery of faces one last time, taking in the shocked expressions of my extended family. They had logged on expecting to see a bitter, lonely spinster getting reprimanded for ruining Christmas. Instead, they had witnessed the spectacular dismantling of a fraudulent empire. Merry Christmas, everyone, I said. I reached forward and closed my laptop, the screen snapping shut with a satisfying click. I picked up my mobile phone, navigated to my settings, and powered the device down completely. The digital connection to the chaos in Atlanta was severed. The silence that washed over my overwater villa was profound and absolute. I stood up from the teakwood table and walked to the edge of my private deck. The Maldivian night sky was a canopy of brilliant diamonds, reflecting perfectly on the glassy surface of the Indian Ocean. I picked up my crystal flute of Dom Pérignon and took a slow, deliberate sip. The cool ocean breeze brushed against my skin, carrying the scent of salt and blooming jasmine. For the first time in 33 years, my chest felt completely light. I was no longer carrying the crushing weight of their expectations, their financial disasters, or their emotional abuse. Peace had finally arrived, and it was beautiful. 3 months later, the humid air of Miami wrapped around me like a warm embrace. I was standing on the top deck of a massive luxury yacht anchored just off the coast of South Beach, expanding my corporate empire into Europe while watching the final pieces of my family's fallout settle into place. The precision of the universe was truly magnificent. Trent had completely ruined his own life. Following his grand theft auto arrest on the Georgia interstate, my legal team had ruthlessly pursued the maximum allowable charges. Because he had crossed county lines in a vehicle registered to a corporate entity, the district attorney refused to offer him a lenient plea deal. He was currently facing multiple felony fraud charges and awaiting trial. To pay his mounting legal fees and satisfy his bail requirements, Trent had been forced to take the only job that would hire him with an active felony case pending. I was currently working at a cell phone accessory kiosk in the middle of a dying suburban mall, wearing a polyester polo shirt and trying to sell screen protectors to teenagers. Kiara had been officially evicted from the family estate. Without my money to prop up her delusions, she was forced to confront the harsh reality of her situation. She had moved her 5 children into a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in a highly undesirable neighborhood. Her fake luxury Instagram account had been permanently deleted after her followers flooded the comments demanding the truth about her husband's arrest. With absolutely no other options, Kiara was now working 40 hours a week as a receptionist at a loud, overcrowded dental clinic. She was finally experiencing the exhausting, unglamorous reality of the working-class life she used to mock. Brenda had suffered the steepest fall of all. Following the eviction and the public exposure of her financial theft, she had been completely ostracized by our church congregation. The women who used to hang on her every word now crossed the street to avoid speaking to her. Stripped of her massive house, her luxury car, and her social standing, Brenda was forced to move into Aunt Shirley's damp, unfinished basement. She spent her days watching daytime television and living off a meager Social Security check, entirely dependent on the charity of a sister who reminded her daily of her massive failures. I turned away from the railing and smiled as the yacht staff carried out a stunning 3-tier cake decorated in gold leaf. Today was my 34th birthday. I was not spending it in a freezing Atlanta suburb, listening to my mother list my flaws. I was surrounded by my true chosen family. Brilliant Black women who ran their own companies, loyal corporate partners who respected my intellect, and friends who celebrated my boundaries. Standing right beside me was Julian, a highly successful venture capitalist I had met during a corporate merger in London. He did not need my money to feel like a man, and he looked at me with an admiration that Trent could never comprehend. Julian handed me a fresh glass of vintage champagne, his dark eyes shining with genuine affection. I looked around the yacht, taking in the music, the laughter, and the undeniable reality of my success. They had called me a miserable, barren spinster. They had said I had no real life. I raised my glass to the Miami skyline, to the ocean, and to the beautiful, unapologetic freedom I had secured for myself. My single lonely life was an absolute masterpiece. Family loyalty becomes a toxic trap when it demands you set yourself on fire simply to keep abusive people warm. The most important lesson I learned was that protecting your own peace requires unapologetic boundaries and the courage to stop funding the delusions of those who disrespect you. True empowerment happens the moment you realize your worth is not defined by traditional milestones or the manipulative demands of your relatives. You owe nothing to people who only view your success as a resource to exploit. Choose your own happiness and never apologize for walking away from disrespect. If this story resonated with you, and you are ready to stop letting toxic family members drain your energy and your bank account, tap the subscribe button right now. Leave a comment below sharing how you finally set boundaries in your own life, and join our community of strong, independent people